Okay, so what we're looking at in this chapter is that we're looking at matrices. Now, with matrices, it's a way of organizing your data without having to deal with um, so much just like fluff, graphs and bars and everything. You just take the data that you need and you break it up into that. So we're going to be looking at what matrices are, and we're looking at our adding and subtracting. The first thing we're looking at is taking data and organizing. So right here we have a graph of China, the US, and Russia, and their production and consumption in a given year. Okay, now the numbers aren't here, but I'm going to show you what the numbers are. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a graph like this. Instead of looking at it and having to deal with this graph going around, we're just going to deal with a smaller, something easier to write. We're going to take the parts that we need. We don't care kind of how big of a difference it is. We're just cared about the actual numbers. So here are the numbers. So we got 42, 43, 45, 29, 71, 98. So what we want to do is we want to try to identify what is each number represent. So if we look here, we'll start with 42. Well, 42 we'll probably assume is right here. Okay, so 42 is there. And now we'll go 43. Now, would this be closer to 43, or would this be closer to 43? Would the Russia or the other China? Probably the other China one's probably closer to 43. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say China is going across. Okay. The next one would be Russia. So we have 45 and 29. Well, that makes sense. That's probably Russia. And then we have the US on our last one. So it looks like each country is going across. These are our rows. And then going down must be our production. 42, 45, 71. Well, if you look at all the blue ones that are production, that's probably the production. And then that one must be consumption. So instead of having to deal with this whole graph, what we're doing is that we're just dealing with a matrix with just the data that we need. So if we look at this, this has a lot of information, a lot of different things going on, and we got to create a matrix of it. There are three things here. We have the weeks, which are on the bottom. Okay, week 1, week 2, week 3. We have the genre, rock, R&B, rap, so on and so forth. And then we have the amount of each one. So you could think of how much is sold or how much is played at a radio station, anything like that, over a given week. And what we want to do is we want to create this matrix. Now, one thing nice with matrices, which is the plural for matrix, if you're not given kind of rules if this is what you want, then, or this is, we want this as the row, this is the column, you can do whichever way you want. So there's going to be two that pop up here. So the first one that pops up is 160, 150, 200, and 180, and the second one is 160, 100, 90, 95. And so now we want to see, okay, well, is it the weeks going down? So is this week 1, week 2, so is this week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, or is that the genre? Okay. So if we go back here, 160, 150, 200, 180 is the blue, which is the rock. So that means it was rock going down. Okay. And then it was R&B. And then it was rap. And then it was the series 4. Okay. Which means that your weeks are going across the top. And then the other one is just the reverse. The weeks are going down. Okay, so this is your week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And then it's the genre going across. Both of these are acceptable. You just have to make sure you realize which is which, because if you have a second one, you want it to match. Okay, we don't want to mix them up. Okay. Now, naming off the matrices, okay, based on their size. So based on the size, you name it by rows, by columns. Okay, rows are how many going across, left to right. So your rows go that way, and your columns go down. Think of, if you think of like ancient Rome, the Colosseum. Okay, columns, things that hold stuff up, are up and down. Okay, rows, you row across a lake. Okay. So this first one, how many rows do we have? Well, we have one row. Okay, and then how many columns? We have 3. So we would say it's a 1 by 3. 1 row, 3 columns. The second one, we have 1, 2, 3 rows. 1, 2, 3, and we have 2 columns. giving it a 3 by 2. Okay, so that's how you name it based on the size. Now this is important when we talk about the next other things going on in this chapter. Okay, adding. Now, when you're adding matrices, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You're adding stuff in the first position to the stuff in the other one's first position. So the first matrix first position, this A, you're adding to the second matrix first position, the W. Then the second position, B plus X, C plus Y, D plus Z. And you add them up. Okay. So if we look at the bottom one down here, 3 plus 3 is 6. And then we have 6 plus 4 is 10. And then we have 4 plus 9, which is 13. And now the last one, 8 plus X, you combine it as far down as you can. So this would just be 8 plus X. And you would write that in that spot. And that would be your matrix. Okay, that's the addition of that matrix. All right, subtracting, same thing, except instead of adding the two numbers together, you are subtracting. So make sure you watch out for those negatives. Remember, if you subtract a negative, you're adding the numbers together. So we go A minus W, B minus X, C minus Y, and D minus Z. So 3 minus 5. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. 7 minus H would be 7 minus H. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 6 minus 5 is 1. And then you would write your matrix. Make sure you do a box around it. Okay, you do 2 brackets because that tells you that whole thing is your answer. Okay? And that's subtracting. Adding and subtracting are probably the easiest ones. Now, if they are different sizes, so if we look at these two matrices, we've got 2 different size matrix. Okay, and again, row and column. The first one we have 2 rows and we have 3 columns. Okay. The second one we have 3 rows and only 2 columns. Since those two do not match exactly, okay, they have to be exactly the same. But since these do not, we cannot combine them. Okay, we can't add them. Because if you look, okay, well this 6, what's that 6 going to be added to? There's nothing, there's no spot there. What's this 9 going to be added to? Well, there's nothing in that spot. Okay, so to add and subtract, they have to be the exact same. All right, finding X. Now this X, which is a capital X, is trying to find a single matrix. Okay, you're not trying to find a number, you're trying to find the whole matrix. So in this one, we need to find a 2 by 2. And it's the same idea as if you were trying to solve an equation. If I gave you 3 minus, or let's say plus X equals 4, how do you solve that? Okay, you would subtract the 3 on both sides to get your number. Okay, X equals 1. Same idea here. So you look here, I've taken this matrix and I've subtracted it to the other side. And now I subtract each part. 10 minus negative 1 is 11. 7 minus 0 is 7. Negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And then your answer is the whole matrix and not just a single number. Okay. All right, now the last thing is dealing with the X and Y. So what we're looking at here is we are looking at trying to find individual numbers. Okay, try and find X is equal to this, Y is equal to that. So with this, since they're equal to each other, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the numbers are matched up. So anything with an X or a Y is what we're trying to solve here. So X plus 8, so if we look in the first position, X plus 8, and we have 38. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go X plus 8 is equal to 38. And then we would solve that. X equals 30. So then we have 5, negative 5 and negative 5, 3 and 3, so those are fine. And then we just do the second one. Negative y equals 4y minus 10. Okay. And then we would solve those. Okay. So once you get your equations, you're just going to solve it. Okay. And then all we're trying to find here is we're trying to find what x and y are. Okay, because we want them to be the same. Okay. So 30 and 2. All right, now your IRAT. So your IRAT for this one is 3 different problems. The first one is just a simple subtraction, so your answer is going to be a matrix. So you're subtracting 5 and 6 minus 8, 2. The second one, you're trying to find the matrix that makes this statement true. So you have the first matrix added to G is equal to another matrix, and we want to find what G is. And the last one, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find what the x and the y are. Okay, so you're solving just like what we just did in the previous slide. So you're going to take this, and you're going to, so each of these are all separate. Okay, so that's how it's kind of broken up. So 2 plus x is the first point, or the first spot, 3 is the second, 4y is the third. And then it's 3, 3, and y minus 9. Okay, so solve each of those. That's your IRAT for this. Okay.